Now, Eskom has its own generation plants and it has a transmission, but Eskom is such a big company that the transmission business and the generation business operate somewhat independently. And when a generation business or when a generation plant has enough power or has power that they would like to feed onto the grid, they feed that power through the transmission network, but there is a commercial transaction between generation business and transmission business, and it's almost like they are operating as two separate entities. So there is this transaction that takes place. It's effectively the transmission business bills the generation business for the use of Eskom's network. And this bill, although it's internal to Eskom, it still operates. It's still a commercial transaction between the business entities. But Eskom has had, since about 2008, Eskom has had a method or framework of allowing independent power producers to be able to also feed power into the grid, and this is known as wheeling. And basically, Eskom transmission treats independent power producers the same way that it treats Eskom generation plants. So in the same way that when an Eskom generation plant wants to feed power into the grid, they charge the plant for a network fee for using the transmission grid. Eskom treats independent power producers, their power stations, their plants, the same way. And there's this commercial transaction between Eskom transmission and this independent power producer. Now, the benefits of a transmission system operator, operationally, nothing would really change. So again, at the moment, if you're an independent power producer and you would like to feed energy onto the grid and you have an off-taker, you can do that, no problem. You can apply for grid access through Eskom, and you can pay the same network fee that all other Eskom generation plants are paying. So operationally, there's no real difference. A transmission system operator would offer no operational difference. It's still the same thing. We're feeding power onto the grid, we're getting charged a network fee, and it gets to end users. The benefit, however, that a TSO or transmission system operator provides is that it removes potential discrimination. Okay, so at the moment, Eskom is the entity that approves or rejects grid access. And there's then a potential for discrimination. Eskom can decide, this business wants to produce power, they want to put it onto the grid, but we feel that these customers that they're supplying, we would like to rather serve them, and then they might reject that application. So Eskom has this. There's a potential for discrimination. There's a potential for Eskom to reject an independent power producer from feeding energy into the grid for their own benefit. Okay, so there's a bit of a conflict of interest there, and so an independent TSO will force Eskom to basically compete with independent power producers. So now Eskom is treated like a power producer, just like every other independent power producer is treated like a power producer, and everybody has an equal opportunity to be able to feed power into the grid. And Eskom would then need to compete with this. Eskom would need to make sure that the power that they're producing is well priced. It's reliable. It's at a certain times. It's operate according to certain operating regimes, and yeah. So basically, it'll force Eskom to compete with independent power producers, and this will obviously result in improved services and better use of our resources. And with several of Eskom's power plants being set to be decommissioned over the years to come, Eskom will naturally lose market share in the electricity market, and so it just makes sense again to have an independent TSO, especially when we get to the point where most of the generation is not coming from Eskom, but is coming from multiple independent power producers. I'm glad you enjoyed that video. Please feel free to look at other videos on my channel, and also make sure you go to my website, shanleylutchman.co.za, to find other articles on business and energy.